Hi everyone. Before I start this presentation, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that many of you have potentially been affected by the opioid epidemic. Many of you may know someone who struggles with chaotic substance use or maybe has lost someone to an overdose. And I just want to take a moment to recognize that there is harm in drug use, and one of the harms is all the pain we feel when we lose people to overdose. So, on that note, let's take a moment to just acknowledge this loss. Hi everyone, my name is SarahFebres-Cordero, and I'm a harm reduction nurse scientist at Emory University's Nell Hodson Woodruff School of Nursing. I run the Overdose Education and Naloxone Distribution Lab with a team of students from across campus. With the OEND Lab, we train college students to identify and respond to opioid-related overdoses by administering rescue breathing and naloxone. In addition to this important work, we also educate students about their rights, including medical amnesty policies at the university level and the state level. The overdose epidemic continues to be a public health emergency, largely fueled by illicit and unregulated fentanyl. Georgia is not immune to the epidemic, with 2,500 lives lost in 2021. A concerning trend of the opioid epidemic is fentanyl-related overdose amongst youth, which saw a four-fold increase from 2019 to 2020-21 and disproportionately affects people of color. We need innovative public health strategies to engage college students in harm reduction efforts, not only to keep them safe from the toxic drug supply, but also from incarceration. As long as drug use is criminalized, young adults are at risk of becoming trapped in a cycle of incarceration. So, what is harm reduction? Harm reduction is a philosophy. It's a way of living and looking at the world around us. Harm reduction philosophy, when it comes to people who use drugs, includes acknowledging that drug use, for better or worse, is part of our world. And as a harm reductionist, I work along with other harm reductionists to keep people as safe as possible when using drugs that could potentially be contaminated with harmful additives such as fentanyl. Harm reduction philosophy also includes treating people with dignity, respect, and compassion. We come into this work with a non-judgmental view of drug use. Not only that, we respect people's autonomy. Body autonomy and harm reduction means that we respect people's choices to do with their bodies what they choose to do with their bodies, which includes using drugs. We care about people who use drugs. We do not judge them, and we do not look at drug use as a moral failing. There are many reasons people may use drugs. Some people may use them recreationally. Some people may use them to deal with unmet mental health needs. Some people use drugs to deal with trauma and is a coping mechanism. These are just a few of the reasons people who use drugs, or why people use drugs. We acknowledge that drug use is on a continuum of behaviors, like the ones I just said, from someone who may be experimenting with drugs to someone who may have become dependent on drugs. We are mindful of the words we use when talking about drug use. Instead of using words like addiction, we use dependency. Instead of using harmful words, when we talk about people who use drugs, we use person-centered language. We meet people where they are. And this means a lot of different things. Sometimes it literally means going to them in different ways, like at a syringe exchange. Or sometimes it means if they come to you as a clinician, you meet them where they are that day. harm reduction philosophy is a wonderful tool to decrease harm from illicit and unregulated drug use. Because in order for someone to make it to remission from drug use, they need to be alive. When we're talking about youth who overdose and die from illicit and unregulated drugs, it's often very sad, as many of them are just recreationally using drugs or experimenting with drugs. But unfortunately, the supply is so toxic that it only takes one bad pill to kill. No one deserves to die from an unintentional overdose. The work we do as harm reductionists is to keep people as safe as we can so that we no longer lose people to opioid-related overdose. For the challenge, I want to challenge you to think of innovative ways to reach college students and build interventions for harm reduction. Harm reduction interventions that we have now include naloxone distribution, never using alone, drug testing. We also work to change policies that harm people who use drugs. There needs to be policy and cultural change, as there's a lot of stigma. Stigma against people who use drugs. It's been decades in the making, and it will take decades to undo the stigma. So again, I challenge you. How can we implement innovative harm reduction strategies that will be accepted by college students? There are many ways to deliver harm reduction strategies, including social media, art-based interventions, app-based interventions, and things like education, seminars, etc. I leave it to you all to come up with something new, something you think will be accepted by college students that will help to decrease stigma and increase use of harm reduction strategies on college campuses. I'm so grateful and privileged to get to do this work with Emory students. You all are amazing, and I'm looking forward to this challenge.